Hello everybody, how's it going? Awesome Soul here, and today I am back with another concept video. In today's video, I will be covering a rework for the Proto-Seeker. This is something a little different. This is not a new weapon, but again, a rework of an existing weapon. Now, the reason for this is because Mark Shomofo and I had a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter, and Mark has said that yes, indeed, the Proto-Seeker will be getting a full rework in the future, but the current state of it is it needed to be nerfed due to the fact that the whole new CPU-based matchmaking system wasn't really working too well for it. It was a little bit overpowered, too low, but unfortunately now it's very underpowered when you're going against high CPU bots. So my aim with this rework is to keep it familiar to old users, i.e. keep it as a mid-range weapon, a rapid-fire weapon, and a lock-on weapon. However, that's where the similarities end, because the current role of it is 1. Very hard to balance, as I've previously stated, and 2. Fills a very similar role to that of the laser, unfortunately. There isn't a whole lot of differentiation when it comes to the Proto-Seeker's niche, and I feel that in Robocraft, every weapon needs to be unique and have a reason that you would bring that into the battlefield. Things shouldn't be too similar. So past the 3 things I stated, everything else will be fairly different. So, moving on, the new role of this weapon, rather than being a harassment weapon, it will now be a crowd control weapon. Now, that might be a little confusing to you, but I will do my best to explain it in detail. Starting off, this one is a little weird, but it will make sense going forward. Each shot deals 0 damage. That's right, when you are firing the Proto-Seeker, each projectile deals no damage. However, what they do will apply a stack of charge to the enemy. So 1 projectile will apply 1 charge level to the enemy. Now, what is charge exactly? Well, once the target reaches 100 charge, i.e. are hit by 100 Proto-Seeker projectiles, that target will then explode. But it's not the explosion that you might think it is. So when the quote-unquote explosion occurs, the target will take a large amount of damage, but enemies nearby will take no damage. What will happen instead is that they will gain 50% charge, basically the equivalent of being hit by 50 Proto-Seeker projectiles. And the bot that has just exploded is now immune to being charged again for 2 seconds. Now, that 2 seconds may be a little bit too short, but of course, all of these can be tweaked to FreeJam's liking. Now, the main reason for it is to prevent something that I like to call an infinite loop of explosions. And that's not a good thing, because if that wasn't there, the first target would explode, and then apply a stack of charge to everyone around them, and then you would fire at someone else, and they would explode, and then everyone else would gain a stack of charge. But of course, 2 explosions mean that now they're at full charge, and then they all explode. And then, because now there's most likely going to be 2 or 3 explosions, that's going to charge someone fully and make them explode. So that 2 seconds is definitely necessary to get rid of something like that. So, as far as explosion range goes, I feel that it would definitely need to be larger than plasma. The reason that plasma is so low is because, well, it does deal damage. However, this one applies an effect. Now, mind you, the effect eventually will lead to damage, but the effect itself from the explosion does not actually deal any damage. So my guess, as opposed to the 25-meter explosion that Mega Plasma has, this should be in the range of 75 meters, so basically triple the size of the Mega Plasma. Now, how long is it going to take to charge an enemy to full? At nominal fire rate, i.e. 5 guns, it would take about 5 seconds. So the gun would shoot 20 projectiles a second, and assuming every shot hits, although not every shot will hit, you're probably looking at around 5 or 6 seconds to charge an enemy target. Now, That does take a long time, especially because you will need 500 CPU worth to get that nominal fire rate. But it will be worth it because the damage it deals is very high. The thing is though, like I said before, this is a crowd control weapon, and emphasis on the crowd. So this will have a very low damage per second versus single targets. The main damage output of this weapon is of course the big splash damage that will apply an effect to someone else. So you can quickly swap between targets, explode them, swap to another target, make them explode, and so on and so forth. When you're only facing a single target, it'll take 5 seconds to charge them up, then they'll explode. It'll take a decent chunk of damage, but however, they're then immune for 2 seconds. So basically the next time you fire, you'll need 7 seconds to charge them up. So this will be not a very good weapon when it comes to a one-on-one fight. You definitely want to bring something else for backup. Where, obviously, this does shine is in crowds. So basically, the larger the crowd, the larger the damage per second. And again, outside of the crowd, I want to emphasize this weapon can be out DPS'd by pretty much anything in the game. So this, much like Flak, has a very limited use. The same way that Flak is only good against aircraft, this is really only good against large crowds of enemies. Now I feel that's something that the game doesn't really have, and it would fit a very unique role. Plasma does kind of fit that. However, you're not taking out a large crowd. You're really only ever gonna hit maybe 2 if they're really close to each other, but that rarely, if ever, happens. Now, a visual representation of how much charge a bot has will be very important. So I've got a somewhat crude example on the screen for you, and as you also can see below, there is a bar that will appear on the HUD as soon as you have 1 charge or higher. And the warning sound will get louder as the bar increases, i.e. the more charge you accumulate, until eventually you explode. And, well, that's fairly loud. So having a visual representation is very important, not only for the Proto-Seeker user, so they can prioritize targets, but also for the allies of the enemy. They can go ahead and look at who's around them that might explode. They're like, okay, maybe I should back off from this guy. I think that might be a good idea. I don't want to get caught up in the explosion. Now, as a little closing thought, why do I think this is a good idea over the old Proto-Seeker, or at least the current Proto-Seeker at the time of this video? Like I've said before, the current Proto-Seeker is in a very odd spot. It's not really unique. I mean, it's unique in the fact that it locks on, but combat role-wise, it fits the same role that the laser does. Sort of a mid-range brawler, except right now the laser is a lot better at doing so. Now, in my opinion, this would be a lot more fun and interesting to fight against than the current Proto-Seeker, because the current Proto-Seeker is just a constant stream of damage that will start as soon as you pretty much see the enemy. What will happen here, it'll lead to a lot more tactical counterplay. Just because it does take a little while to actually charge up the enemy, you will be taking no damage. You can drive headfirst into the enemy, try and prioritize their Proto-Seekers, therefore it'll take even longer for them to charge you up, and possibly you might be able to shoot off all their Proto-Seekers before they charge you to full. So that's obviously a fairly risky maneuver. However, you are, again, taking no damage, so it is a risk that you could definitely be willing to take. Likewise, all those around you will be a little bit more cautious, and it's not necessarily the most powerful weapon ever, but it is a very good psychological weapon. It will make crowds think twice before bunching up, especially with medics. Medics getting too close will obviously get caught up in the charge and obviously risk taking more damage. So, what do you guys think of this rework? Do you like it? Do you think a few things should be changed? Or do you think that you'd like to see something else for the Proto-Seeker? Let me know down below, and go ahead and share this video around if you do like it. I, of course, have been the Awesome Soul. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.